And so let's start this off. True Romance was the first script I ever wrote. I had written a bunch of scripts from God, what was it? I guess from the seventh grade. All right, I guess how old you were in the seventh grade? I don't know, like 14, 15. Till the time I wrote True Romance, but I never finished any of them. All right, I don't know how many scripts I tried to write. I don't know, maybe like I don't know, probably not 30, but you know, up there abouts. And I always got to about page 30. And then I could never go any further not because I would run out of ideas necessarily. I never had. It was more a situation that I think a lot of writers, when I read especially screenplays, the problem is it was more like I wanted to write a script than I had necessarily a burning story to tell. And so what I would do is I would write scripts and I'd get up to page 20, 25, 30, and then once it started getting to be hard work, I'd lose interest. But the main thing that would always derail me is I'd be writing a script and I'd get up to that point, and then I would all of a sudden think of this really other great idea that was just so much better than the one that I was working on. All right, that I would just kept hopping from thing to thing and never finish anything. And then after years of that, just having tons of pieces of material up to 30. I wrote a script called The Open Road, all right, and that got me past the page 30 point, all right, but the script started becoming literally my great American novel that never got made, all right, and so at least in handwritten pages, it was getting up to page 500. All right, so okay, well, I've broken that. I've broken that page 30 barrier. Now I gotta write a script that's could be the length of a movie, and so. But I knew after I'd written The Open Road that the next time I tried to write something, that this would be the one. And it was. The very next one I tried was True Romance. But there was also something else about True Romance that led up to it. I had tried to direct a movie. And actually, oddly enough, the movie I tried to direct was called My Best Friend's Birthday. I tried to do it on 16 millimeter. And that scene that we just saw, the scene about how I'd fuck Elvis, that was a monologue from My Best Friend's Birthday that I said in the movie. And the thing is, I had shot it for a couple weekends, and then over the next 3 years, financing it from my video archives minimum wage job, I would just shoot every few weekends on this movie. All right, and basically, I worked on it for about 3.5 years. All right, just financing it piecemeal, a couple $100s at a time. And then what ended up happening is I put it together, and I kind of didn't have what I thought I had. It wasn't that good, and so I just decided, well, you know what? Okay, it just turned out to be nothing. But after being depressed for a little bit, I got over my depression. I'm pretty good about that. And I looked at the good side of it. And the good side of it was the fact that I had taught myself how to make a movie. All right, and I didn't have to go to film school to do it. If you try to make a movie, you'll, when you get through, I don't know if you'll have anything worth showing for it, but you will have, you'll know how to make a movie. Now maybe the next time you do it, you can do it good, which is my situation. So after that, I decided, okay, you know what? Let me try to write a real movie. All right, not that I'm trying to do it, not done piecemeal on weekends. Let me try to write a real movie and get the money for it and, do it. And at that time, my heroes, as far as, not even so much as filmmakers, but as far as they'd done it, all right, was the Coen brothers with Blood Simple. So I was like, okay, we're going to do True Romance like they did Blood Simple and do it for $1.3 million or something, and we get the money from doctors and lawyers or something. And Stanley Margolis was one of the guys we went to try to get the money. That's how he's still involved. His name is up on the credits. And I wrote True Romance, and it was really different. Here I am. It was really different than all the other scripts I had tried to write, because I just knew I was going to finish this one. It was a thing where I had a story to tell. I wasn't just trying to write a screenplay in order to make a movie. And so I wrote it, And then I tried for years, and so this was my first script ever done, ever finished. So then I wrote it, and then tried basically for the next 5 years to try to get it made, and it never happened. Now, I'll go back to the story in a second, but this is from the Japanese film The Street Fighter, starring Sonny Chiba. And it's funny, I've actually seen this triple feature of Street Fighter, Return of the Street Fighter, and Sister Street Fighter. And since the time we've made this movie, these films were like really almost impossible to find on video. And actually, the Street Fighter was the first film rated X for violence ever in the history of America. There's been a few since, but Street Fighter was the one. And then after its initial release, they cut it down to an R and cut it all up, and that was the only version of the movie available. Now, they've come out with all three of them on video in their original versions. So actually, if you at home want to have the Clarence, Alabama date, all right, of watching the Kung Fu triple feature, then you can, in the privacy of your own home. Except it won't be as much fun as it would be at a grindhouse. In fact, I have kind of a semi-story of some film geek friends of mine. They're into the stuff I'm into. When they were shooting this, that theater is that they're at is the Vista. It's literally on the corner of where Hollywood Boulevard and Sunset Boulevard meet. It actually used to be a gay porno movie theater, years and years and years and years and years ago, way before this movie was made. And then it was Revival House, and now it's actually for the first run theater again. But when they were making the movie, they had the marquee on the Vista marquee and everything, and they had some weird posters in the thing. And some film geek friends of mine were driving by, and they go, "Oh my God, a Street Fighter triple feature!" And they came in there and they go, "No, we're not showing it. We're making a movie." And they go, "Oh, this is Quentin's fucking movie. Oh, God damn it! All right." So they walked away. So I tried to make True Romance for like a long 5 years and never got it going. And what happened was, and believe me, any people out here who watching this movie and like the script and stuff, well, just know, if you had met me, during those 5 years, I would have sold you the script. I would have sold it for the most bargain basement price, just to prove to myself that I was a writer. After I tried to get it made for like a long time, to no avail. But no one was taking it. And a lot of people had read the script and everything, and some people liked it, and some people didn't, actually. A lot of people actually didn't, because, it's funny. Now people kind of are, into my voice a little bit, but, or have been, but then my voice was so new that it wasn't that, oh, this is a new, fresh voice. It's like, I'm doing it wrong. I'm not writing a script the way I'm supposed to write it. And so I had to deal with that for a long time. Now, okay, I'm going to get off of my overall thing and jump into this specific scene right here. This scene is kind of interesting. There's actually a second part to this scene, which I have no idea whether or not Tony ever filmed or not. But it's he asked Alabama these questions about herself. All right, which is actually pretty much taken from the Playboy centerfold questionnaire. He even says, "What are your turn-ons? What are your turn-offs?" That kind of thing. And then at the end of this scene in the script, and it seems really crazy. All right, so I have no problem by Tony dropping it off, but she proceeds to tell a story of how she doesn't know who she is, and she got hit by amnesia, and she's been wandering the streets without a memory. And she's just bullshitting him, all right, and Clarence catches that he's bullshitting her, and like they tease. But I was like, that's the way the scene initially ended. But one thing is kind of funny is it was about like 6 years after I wrote it that the film got made. And so when you listen to her answers to the questions, a little of them seem kind of like cool and retro, but when I wrote it, they weren't cool and retro. They were literally, he says, "What's your favorite? Who's your favorite actor?" And she says, "Burt Reynolds." All right. Well, Burt Reynolds was a big star when I wrote this script. He was a star of the people. So it wasn't like this, like she was like being all cool and retro. All right. And the second thing he asked her, one of the other things he asked her is like, who do you find sexy? And she says, Mickey Rourke. All right. Well, Mickey Rourke was the man when I wrote this script. So again, that wasn't crazy either.
Don't peek. Keep your eyes shut.
Now, the thing about True Romance is it's the closest thing, it's the most autobiographical film that I've ever wrote. I mean, all my stuff that I've done, is, I'm all over it, and I've always, sometimes people will, I don't know, who knows what people say, but the thing is, my scripts are, I'm all over my scripts, and especially if you know me, you read them and you see it. And I always feel that as a writer, you should almost, when you finish a piece of work, you should almost be embarrassed by it a little bit, because you were just revealing yourself. All right, the people will read it and they're going to know too much about you. I think if your writing's going to have anything, that should be the case. But just like, many first-time novelists and, some first-time screenwriters, my first script was about me, all right? And now I look at True Romance, and I've always felt this way, but this is a situation where it's gotten deeper and deeper and deeper for me, is when I look at True Romance, I'm incredibly moved by my perception of myself, of Clarence, because that was kind of me. At 25, which is what the age I was when I wrote it, that was me. Now I'm, a lot of that guy is still me, is still in me, but I'm not him anymore. I'm different. All right, I'm 36. All right, so it's like it's I'm you know what I'm trying to say. It's like I'm the shell of me is there. So it's like almost like I get to revisit who I was when I watched True Romance, and even all my worked at a video store, Video Archives, and if you know anything about me, you probably heard about that, and all my friends who work at the video store, who worked at that video store, they love this movie because it is so me, and it's kind of so them. And I mean, it's funny because, none of this stuff happened to me, all right? I never met some, cool hooker or pretty much any girl around that time. Not at the time I wrote this anyway. And that's part of this movie, all right, is the fact that I was 25 and I'd really never had a girlfriend. And there was something of, so this is sort of like, not that I ever really wanted a girlfriend like Alabama. I've always been attracted to smart women. Not that Alabama is dumb, but she's not an intellect first kind of person. She's an emotion first kind of person. And I tend to I want to find a woman who's smarter than I am. But so it's not like she's my dream girl or anything. But the dream part about it was, one, just that she was a girl. All right, he kind of quotes that line in here when he goes, "Hey, I was so happy when you took off your dress and you didn't have a dick." So the dream part was that the fact that she was a girl, all right, and that she was kind of cute, and that she liked Clarence. She ends up falling in love with Clarence just because he's nice to her, because the way he treats her, because of who he is. And, it was really funny because it was very important to me that Clarence not be played by like a big old handsome movie star that you just feel could kind of get anything he wanted. It was important that Clarence be a minimum wage kid. All right, like me and a bunch of my friends. And Clarence could have even been a little older than this. Clarence could have been 29 and still stuck in a minimum wage job. Actually, when I was writing the script years and years and years ago, it was like my two people, and they were more or less the right age for it at that time, was Joan Cusack as Alabama and Robert Carradine as Clarence. They were too old by the time we made it, and I can't even imagine anybody but Patricia playing Alabama. She's wonderful, and Christian is terrific in the movie. And one of the things that I really liked about Christian is that Christian's a real handsome guy, and he's a real sexy guy, and gals were really into him. All right, but he's not really playing his sexiness in this movie or his handsomeness, all right? He takes his movie, he kind of scrapes off his movie star veneer a little bit. He seems like a minimum wage kid. He seems like a kid you could walk into a video store or a comic book store or any kind of store and see behind the counter, and that was really important to me. So So just so you know, just the idea of being in love and having a cool girlfriend, that would just be, and it was also a big thing. It's almost been in every one of my movies I've ever written about couples. All right, is not just that the girl is your girlfriend and you're her boyfriend and she's girlfriend boyfriend stuff. It was the fact that the girl was your pal. All right, she was your friend. And, you could hang out with her like you could hang out with your friend. It's either called the, and that's part of the bump for walk-in scene, or it's called the Sicilian scene. All right, as time has gone on. The fact that she could listen to the different, liked his kind of music, and this is one of my proudest moments of my entire career. This scene. The scene actually the Sicilian speech came about in real life through two friends. One was a kind of badass older black guy that was kind of there's my mom, and then her best friend was a woman named Jackie, and she was black, and she was like my second mom, kind of, through my entire childhood and teenage years. And she had a brother who was no longer with us anymore, who'd spent some time in jail, and his name was Don, or Big D was actually his most commonly used nickname. And Big D has shown up in a lot of my movies. Sam Jackson's little bit that mostly got cut out by the MPAA in the opening scene with Drexel. He's playing Big D. That's his. If you read the script, that's his character's name is Big D. And he used to tell me about history and stuff. And he told me way back when, all right, literally when I was about 10 or 11 or something like that, about how the Moors conquered Sicily and how the Moors were black and they started fucking the Sicilian women, and that's why Sicilians look the way they do today. And I never forgot. I always thought it was kind of interesting. And and then I have then say cut to years later. I'm 23, 24, and my roommate and still a friend of mine to this day, and he was Sicilian, and I'm fucking with him and teasing him, all right, and I do completely impromptu the Sicilian speech in this movie for the first time. And when I finished it, I was like, hey, that's a good scene, that's a good speech, okay, note to myself, remember that. And so writing True Romance, and this wasn't me even trying to plug it in, it just kind of naturally worked. So I wrote it, and I was pretty happy with it. And now, I think this scene, I think a case could be made that this scene is almost too good. All right, it's every once in a while, it might not be the best thing to have the best scene in the movie happen, before the midway point. All right, actually, I would actually say most other movies probably couldn't even survive a scene like this, because this scene would just be so much better than anything else in the movie that you'd want to go home after the scene was over. True Romance is so much fun and lively in the way, and the actors are so good in it and everything, that actually the movie survives the scene. All right. And you know what I'm talking about if you've ever watched a movie and it has this great scene and you kind of know you're never going to see a scene that good again. All right, True Romance actually, the fact that True Romance can survive this scene is actually a testament to Tony and the actors in the film. And when I'm saying about how good I think this scene is, I'm not talking about me really. This is just a completely beautiful, I think, four-way ensemble between what I wrote, the way Christopher Walken played it, the way Dennis Hopper played it, and the way Tony Scott directed it. I think it's just a four-man thing, and what's wild, except for the little, they have one little improv in the scene when Dennis Hopper says, you're part eggplant. And then Christopher Walken says, well, you're a cantaloupe. All right. That was a little improv bit. But aside from that, everything they said in the scene was scripted. So much so that, Christopher Walken has so much dialogue in this. And I almost got embarrassed the first time I saw the scene. I almost got embarrassed because he memorized every line, every single little tiny word he said, and he said perfectly. And it was almost almost intimidating that such a terrific actor would take my work so seriously as to remember, as to completely never make up anything, never smooth out everything, just say every so, the, and they. He did them all. And it was quite terrific. And I really think that this scene could and should be put in a time capsule as far as just great acting. All right, if you want to just see great actors being great, then this is the scene. And you know what? I think I'm going to stop talking and put these headphones back on and just listen to it for the rest of the scene.
That's why.
Now, if you want to see,
Blonde hair, blue eyes became.
if you want to do a little history perspective on this, it's funny. This actually has made a lot of people who never knew this go to the history books and look it up. All right, in particular, a lot of blacks go to say, "I didn't know that was the case," and they look it up and they realize, "Oh my God, that's the truth." And actually, it was even kind of funny because I wasn't in the room, unfortunately, but when True Romance came out on video, my mom and Jackie and Big D watched it in their living room, and Big D hadn't seen it at the theaters. And Big D was still alive, and they were watching this scene, and this speech starts, and then my mom told me, and I can hear him say it. Big D was like, "Hey, that shit's true. Yeah, I told Quentin that shit. I told Quentin that shit when he's just a little bitty boy. He's 11 years old. I remember telling him that shit, but that shit's true. I'm glad that shit's out there. People should know that shit." Big D, wherever you are right now, God fucking bless you. And anybody who's interested in seeing, I think the closest thing that they've ever come to doing a cinematic treatment of the Moors is a really cool Viking movie, all right, directed by the cinematographer, who actually was a terrific director. I actually like him more as a director than a cinematographer, to tell you the truth. Jack Cardoff. And he did a movie called The Long Ships. And in it depicts the Viking War, the Vikings fighting the Muslim Moors, all right? And Richard Widmark plays the leader of the Vikings, and Sidney Poitier plays the leader of the Moors. And Sidney Poitier is the bomb in the movie. He is so terrific in it. It's so great. So that's really the only completely full-on movie version that kind of shows the Moors, all right? And also in the film, in that movie, The Long Ships, it's also very interesting, is Sidney Poitier's wife is played by the Italian actress Rosanna Scafino. And so, like, literally, he's got a Sicilian wife in the movie. So, if you want to take this, this history lesson just one step back, then look at Jack Cardoff's The Long Ship, starring Sidney Poitier and Richard Widmark. So, Pitt, the roommate Floyd. There he was. We saw him in the right-hand corner there. Just sitting on the couch, smoking a bong.
I didn't even hear.
Now, literally, all through my 20s, to tell you the truth, pretty much until I sold the script to True Romance, I always had to live with roommates. All right? And this was sort of my vision of most of the roommates or a lot of roommates that I had is just guys that just planted themselves on the couch and that's what they were. All right, as if they grew out of the couch and they never quite got up and just constantly watched TV all the time. This scene is when we come back from the flashback, not the flashback, because well, it sort of is. All right, of Clarence telling the story of how he met Alabama and how he got Dretzel's coke. This is when we come back into the throw it. So this is like scene is like literally the beginning of the third act, and pretty much from this point on, this is the way the movie was. All right, now we're kind of caught up with the movie structure, the structure of the original script. This is the beginning of the third act. All right. So now the thing is, I'm really proud of the fact that when I write screenplays and everything, that like all the characters, even Dick Ritchie, is like, a full-bodied, full-blown character, all right? The closest thing to just a sketch that I wrote, all right, was Floyd. There really wasn't a whole lot to Floyd. He was a stoner. He's there sitting there on the couch watching TV, taking bong hits and everything. That was all there, but it was just a sketch. Brad Pitt took my little sketch and almost, as far as I'm concerned, steals the show. After the Sicilian scene, he almost steals the third act. He's so terrific in it. It's, to me, anyway, and he since then proved it time and time and time again. But to me, he completely proved his chops as an actor in this movie, because I know what I wrote, and he did so much more than what I wrote, all right, that I just give him nothing but kudos, all right. He is the man in this movie. It's one of the most memorable characters in the film, and I really do. I think from the third act, he does kind of steal the show. And there's even an interesting thing about that, actually. Another interesting take on that. I remember, like I told you, my whole cast went to see the premiere of the premiere of True Romance when we were in rehearsals for Pulp Fiction. And the thing is, there's this, I think one of the coolest comedy moments as far as like watching the movie with an audience is people just keep showing up at the apartment and always having to deal with Floyd, and Floyd kind of sending them on their way. And it's a really great joke and gag that, like, it worked in the script, but it works 15 times better in the movie. That just kind of accumulates until by the end, the audience was literally pissing their pants laughing by the time that, all the Blue Society's Christopher Walken's gangsters show up at Brad Pitt's place. And Uma Thurman, who saw the film, we were talking about it the next day, and she had a very interesting take on it. She said that, there's a reason why the audience just clicks into Floyd. Because Floyd is actually telling the audience something. This is her theory, and it's a good theory. She says, it's like Floyd is telling us, the audience, how to enjoy this movie, how to watch this movie. You're an audience member, and you're watching it, you know what? Floyd's got the right idea. He ain't taking it all that seriously. He's just enjoying it. He's just taking his bong hits, and he's just dealing with what comes along. And he's having a great time, and almost in a weird way, Floyd almost becomes even more than Clarence in Alabama, the audience identification figure, as far as the whole third act is concerned. It's an interesting theory. Now this scene is very, it's the same dialogue, but it's very different than in the script. In the script, I think they were all at the LA County, they're at the LA Zoo, and they're just like walking around. Tony put it on a roller coaster to give the movie like some momentum and like kind of cool, fast, cutty stuff, and it works really well. Actually, I think it was a good change on his part. All right, so then we're gonna go into this scene now. Now, let me talk about something else. Is True Romance was not a financial success when it opened in. What was it? I think 93. When it opened in 93, and it was funny. It was a weird situation when it came out and didn't do well, because I'm literally in pre-production on Pulp Fiction. All right. Reservoir Dogs had already come out, and by the way, one of the most important and defining things about my career is the movie that put me on the map, the movie where people, and particularly critics, first learned my name, was a movie I directed. If the first time they ever heard of me was True Romance, for a while anyway, I always would have been a writer trying to direct. But because my first movie, the first one out of the gate, was one that I wrote and directed, from that point on, they always thought of me as a filmmaker, not a writer just trying to direct. Cool, because when writing Reservoir Dogs, it literally was, this is not just some script I'm trying to sell. I know I'm going to make this. This is doable. This is the first time in my life I'm ever going to have money. I'm going to use it to make a movie with. And, so that was basically the idea. But we ended up getting more money, and we actually were able to make it like a real movie, which is a whole other story. But during that time, okay, I meet Tony. Tony reads Reservoir Dogs. He wants to do it. I say, no, I can't. I'm gonna do this. But I send him True Romance and Natural Born Killers to read, see if he wants to do those. And I really have always thought about those first 3 scripts I wrote. They are completely my first chapter as an artist. In this industry, as an artist, my trajectory, everything. The original scripts for True Romance and Natural Born Killers and Reservoir Dogs, they all 3 kind of fit together. I don't mean like thematically or anything, but just of me and expressing myself and finding my voice. And so he read True Romance, he read Natural Born Killers, he liked them both, but he really loved True Romance. He really, really loved it. And my thing was like, well, you know what? This other company has it. All right, so why don't and Tony Scott says he wants to encourage him to go for it, and that's what happened. He went for it, all right, and he got it, and so that's how Tony got on this got on the film. And now since then, a lot of people have asked me, do I wish I would have done it? And the truth of the matter is, I made Reservoir Dogs. Reservoir Dogs got made first. I made Reservoir Dogs, and then after during the time I was writing Pulp Fiction is when Tony made True Romance. And literally on the pre-production of Pulp Fiction, we're like driving around doing a location scout, and I'm seeing the posters for True Romance, open up in the next week. I'm seeing the posters for True Romance up on the streets, and it was just so wild to see all these posters of Clarence in Alabama as I'm going, as I'm in pre-production, I'm making Pulp Fiction. And not only that, I'd already cast Pulp Fiction by this time, so the first time I saw the movie from beginning to end was at the premiere, and I brought my cast to the premiere. We were in rehearsal, so pretty much my entire cast in Pulp Fiction showed up at the True Romance premiere, and we all watched it together, and it was a quite magical evening, and everyone really liked it.
I think what you did. What?
And but the thing is, Tony was so completely the right guy to do this movie. I was the right guy to direct the movie at the time I wrote it, but I wrote this to be my first movie. All right, and your first movie is different from your second movie. It's different from your third movie. It was supposed to be, it was supposed to work and everything, but it's also supposed to be a little show-offy, a little, throw down the gauntlet a little bit. And I've studied directors' careers, so I think about, there's the first movie, and then there's the second movie, and then there's the third movie, and then there's the fourth movie. And they're all, different. They all have a different intention. And so True Romance was written to be my first movie. Couldn't get it going. So then I wrote Natural Born Killers to be my first movie. All right, couldn't get it going. Then I wrote Reservoir Dogs to be my first movie. Got it going. And what had happened was Tony's partner at the time, and one of the producers in this film, was a really great guy named Bill Unger. Oh, by the way, let me stop here for just 2 seconds. Burl Ives singing Itty Bitty Tear. I wrote, like I do in most of my scripts, I wrote little music cues, like different songs to play. And Tony pretty much, he picked his own songs. All right, this is the only one of my songs that I wrote in the script. All right, that Tony kept. He liked Burl Ives singing Itty Bitty Tear. I wish it was on the soundtrack album, but it wasn't. But but this is the only one of my music cues that survived. And so the thing is, Bill Unger, the producer of the movie, well, they were just trying to get the movie going. All right, said that well, Quentin, would you be interested? Tony would produce the movie if you want to direct it, because they could get it going with me now. I just done Reservoir Dogs, and my answer was no. All right, and this was Tony offering it, Tony and Bill offering it to me, and I said no because I had emotionally moved on. All right, I needed to make my second movie, which was Pulp Fiction. This was supposed to be my first movie, so it would kind of be taking. I'm talking about just for my trajectory. It just wasn't the same thing, and but also, and here's why Tony should have done it.
That's okay, Daddy. It didn't have that effect on.
Look, I love True Romance, and I never stopped loving it and everything. But there was a time for me to make it, and that time had passed. Tony had the love and the passion for it that it needed. All right, I had a respect for it and secret love, but I kind of love it now more. And I have to almost think that I actually even love now the movie more because I didn't make it. That I get to see my world through somebody else's eyes, and this is going to surprise people and everything. I was never on the set. I never visited the set one day. I was never, ever, ever, ever on the set. I talked to Tony a bunch in pre-production, and I talked to him in post-production, and that was it. I never went on the set because my whole feeling about this is if a writer is going to be involved with a movie that somebody else is going to direct, then either he should be involved in a big way, where he's on the set every day, and he's on point with the director, all right, or not at all. All right, you talk to them in the pre-production stage about the piece of material, and then you just let them do their thing. That's really is my philosophy, and so I couldn't be on the set every day, and so that was the avenue I decided to go, and I couldn't be happier with it. But my wrap this part up, my philosophical feelings about this stuff as far as scripts are concerned is, my scripts are concerned is. They're like girlfriends. Scripts you write are like girlfriends. And the older scripts you write are like old girlfriends. And it's like, there's the girls you marry and the girls you don't, all right? And it's like True Romance was my old girlfriend. And it was a great love, and we were together for a long time. But we never quite got married. All right, hence I didn't direct it. We never quite got married. So, and Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, those were the girlfriends that I married. All right, and so I couldn't have put my old girlfriend in better hands than Tony. And it's also kind of great to see my world in this style because I don't shoot the way Tony does at all. All right. And I've never in any movie have I ever used smoke in a scene, all right, where they smoke up the set and fan it out and you have all this atmosphere hanging out in there. I've never done that at all right, and I don't like it when other people do it, but I love it when Tony does it. I think Tony does it great. It's and if sometimes I've heard people say that they don't like it, and I go, well, if you don't like that kind of stuff, then you just don't like Tony's work because that's his style, that's his look, all right. I don't like dig it when a lot of other guys do it, but I love it when Tony does it. It's just a great look. And if ever in a scene that I direct, if I ever do that kind of look, then I'm literally trying to capture a Tony Scott look. I'll be telling the cinematographer, okay, I want this to look like a Tony Scott movie. Now, back to the movie here at hand. This is the most single autobiographical scene I've ever written. Not that any of this happened or anything, but this is sort of but this was me dealing with my stepfather. Or I never met my real father, but I had a stepfather, Kurt, and he was my father for basically from I think from 2, I started having a consciousness from 2 to like 10 or something, and then he split. But in that infancy and toddler time, that was my father. And this speech right here that he's saying, all right, that's my speech to him. That would be me talking to my stepfather in this situation. And, everyone got on your case. I never did. Everyone blamed you about this. I never did. I tried to make your thing as easy as possible, your responsibility. If you don't want to do it, fuck off. All right. But what's interesting, I always had a really great relationship with his brother, which is my Uncle Cliff. So it's very interesting. And a couple of things like this happen in a few other scripts. And I would always write Kurt, but call him Cliff, which is just it's kind of an interesting thing. This is kind of semi-autobiographical, too. This is me in my 20s trying to be an actor in Los Angeles, all right, sitting with zillions of other guys in casting office, just trying out for, hood number 2, all right, in T.J. Hooker or, New York bank robber number 3 in an episode of Dukes of Hazzard or something. That was kind of a takeoff on this stuff. And, it's funny, but it's not really a takeoff. It's pretty much the way it is, the casting process. Now, the original structure of the script for True Romance is very different from the movie. The way it worked, even though it has almost identically the same scenes. I mean, really, it's except for the ending, it was the structure that Tony didn't use. Everything else, I mean, God, he did exactly what I wrote. I mean, it's pretty good. And all the scenes are there. They're just in different order. The way it worked initially was it would start with the Elvis, I'd fuck Elvis speech. Then there was the credits. Then there was the Drexel pussy-eating speech. And we don't know who's this guy, and he kills all those other guys, and we're like, what the fuck's going on? Right, we still don't know what's going on. I like that. Don't know what's going on, but it's all entertaining. Then the next scene after the Drexel pussy eating scene is Clarence in Alabama showing up at Clarence's father's house, Dennis Hopper, and so the whole story more or less about Drexel, her being his pimp and all that blah 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 blah, and the cocaine and all that stuff, all right, was told. You just kind of hear it through Clarence's version. But you don't quite hear the whole thing. But we don't know what's going on. We don't know what's going on, all right? And we only have Clarence's slight version. So when we were watching this scene, we don't really know who to believe or what's going on. Just two kids seem like sweet kids, all right? So they split. Then, he calls Dick Ritchie, which is going to be coming up. Then there's the infamous or famous or whatever Christopher Walken Dennis Hopper scene. Now, how the structure really affects us in a big way, the biggest difference between the way the movie works and the way the structure works is we don't know Clarence's story. We don't know exactly any of the whys of the wherefores about how he met Alabama, how he ended up taking the cocaine or anything. It's all just very sketchy. All right, all we have is the fact that we kind of like these two kids, even though we don't know anything about them. The biggest difference is, audiences, as long as they're in good hands, they like being curious. They don't like to be told everything, all right? If they think that they're in good hands, if they think the storyteller will eventually take care of them, they can wait if they think, it's not a mistake, if they think it's on purpose. And so Christopher Walken comes in, and he gives us our first real information about what happened. But his information is like, okay, here's what happened. Your dumb fuck son and his whore come in there blazing. They found out we were going to do a cocaine deal. They came in there, they shot everybody, killed everybody, completed a total fucking massacre, and they took the dope and ran. So that's the first time we've actually heard complete information about exactly what happened. And so, our thought, our thought should be like, they did that? They're that crazy? They're that homicidal? All right, that was supposed to be the idea behind that. Then, from that sequence, then we have Clarence arriving in, Los Angeles, in Hollywood. All right, and he gets together with Dick Ritchie, and then him and Dick in Alabama go out to Pink's hot dog stand, and they're talking, and then Dick literally says something to the effect of, so how did you meet Alabama? All right, and then he tells the story, all right, and that's the second act, and that starts with Clarence in the movie theater watching the Street Fighter triple feature in Alabama coming in. And then that goes on through the whole second act of the movie until leading up to Clarence killing Drexel. And after the killing of Drexel and finding the cocaine, from that point on, we pick up the movie it comes back in the film to when Clarence shows Dick Ritchie the cocaine and about how to sell it, and Dick Ritchie's like flipping out. All right, and then that's the third act, and then from that point on, the movie's like it is. All right, now the way that 3-act structure was supposed to work was this: the first act, everybody in the movie, with the possible exception of Cliff Worley, Dennis Hopper, knows so much more than we do. All the characters know what they're talking about. We don't know what they're talking about. All the characters know what they did, again, except for Cliff. We don't. All right? Everybody in the movie is way ahead of the audience. All right. The second act, the audience hears the whole story and catches up with the characters. The third act, and this is where it starts getting kind of cool, and it's the only thing I miss, is now the audience, well, you know what, I say I miss it, but actually this still works, all right. The audience now knows more than the characters. The audience is so much more hipper about what's going on and what's happening than any one of the characters in the movie, all right. You know, the audience knows that Clarence isn't working for a cop or anything like that to try to sell this cocaine. The audience knows that Bronson Pinchot's Elliot Blitzer, all right, is working with the cops. All right, the audience knows what's waiting for Clarence up in that hotel room, but we don't. The audience knows, but Clarence doesn't. You know, it's like everybody is ahead of all the characters. So that was the way it was supposed to be. Act 1, audience doesn't know shit. Characters know everything. Act 2, audience catches up. Act 3, audience knows far more than anybody in the movie.